Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. This is the Tesla Roadster portion. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
What we have behind us here is a rendition of a dilapidated Roadster and what the Roadster really would like to look like.
I love that picture. That's there are so many things on that Roadster that can be done.
And, this is an AI image, of course. I sat there last night for 45 minutes trying to get the right image. And my original goal was I would like to have you render a dilapidated Tesla Roadster by a large mirror with a reflection of perfection in the mirror, exemplifying what the Roadster would like to become. Because what we're trying to do here is show what we can do with Roadsters when they come in, and they don't look quite this bad when they come in, but, close at times.
Sometimes, not quite the ruggedness on some of the fenders, but
right.
And you said that ChatGPT was having a terrible time with those.
Oh, it kept getting it wrong. It didn't understand that what it was supposed to put in the mirror was the perfection edition of a Roadster. It would flip-flop them and then have a decrepit outside the mirror, with a nice... So finally I said, okay, it's not understanding me. I'm going to ask AI now to give me the prompt to make this work. Even after doing that, it still flubbed it a bit. And after 45 minutes, I got this. There's no mirror there. But anyway, it does show what we're trying to convey, which is what's happening to Tesla Roadsters these days as they're aging, and what can be done to restore them.
So first thing we learned is AI does not know about automatopoeia yet, which is inanimate objects having human characteristics.
Yes. Okay. So the before and after things. Oh, we've got someone chiming in Instagram, Ian Caldwell. Hey, guys, thanks for joining us. And
Thank you
again,
for joining us.
Yeah, like we said in the last podcast, tell us where you're coming in from. If you like, even give us your Roadster VIN. This is for the Roadster community, after all. And
yes.
In that community, VINs are everything. That's how we identify each other. Oh, you're the guy that owns 441,
That's right. And the status VINs are probably 1 to 100.
Right.
And once you're getting up in that 1450 range, you're gonna have a status VIN in the U.S. because those are some of the last ones.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a few others.
And if you have a VP or an EP, you are very special.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
So one of the first things that we see when the Roadsters come in is paint improvement is required. Not everyone has the right kind of detailing cloths, for example. Some people use, old towels, which may have abrasive stuff in them. And what you end up with as you're using these types of products, you're going to end up with swirl marks and scratches and a dull finish. And there isn't a Roadster typically that comes in that doesn't need some level of paint improvement. They come in dull, scratch. Some even have minor body damage. The little bit of curb didn't only affect the wheels. It might have even affected the front bumper or, the side marker or something.
Oh, yes. And I even remember even Roadsters that are stored sometimes come in with issues. The Chinese Roadsters had the dead PPF that was all flaky, and it looked like all cracked, flaky, and yellow and off color and all that.
And again, as we've said, if you wait too long to take care of a aging PPF, it may require a repaint, because what happens is the adhesive on the PPF, by the way, is paint protective film. Clear bra is another name for it. It is a plastic clear laminate that has adhesive on one side, kind of like, double stick tape or single stick tape in this case. And if you let it age too much, it sits out in the sun, it bakes, it dries, it can crystallize with the clear coat that's on the painted surface. And once that happens, you're not going to be able to get that old, cracked, dull, peeling PPF off anymore without having to sand it down and repaint. The average life of a PPF in normal use, and what I mean by that is you store your car in a garage. I owned a Ferrari for 23 years. My Ferrari never sat outside. It was never parked outside. These are the types of cars that you store inside. And even though that Tesla Roadster may not have cost you as much as a Ferrari, it's going collectible. and it's going to be worth more as time goes on. So it deserves that kind of attention. But occasionally it's going to sit outside. You're going to go to the grocery store. It's going to be in full sun. You're going to go visit your cousin, and you're going to drive the car there, and they don't have room for you in the garage. It may even sit out in rain at times.
Sure.
But in essence, a PPF lifespan is typically on the order of 7 to 8 years. At that point, you want to have it removed, either replaced or go without PPF. That's your choice.
Sure, makes sense.
We find wheels are oftentimes curb rashed. And, it's sometimes it's unavoidable. I always worry when I drive up to the Starbucks coffee, counter there with the drive-through, because there's a curb that's fairly close to that. And you sit so low in a Tesla Roadster, you have to kind of reach to get your coffee and to pay them, right? So I tend to get closer than I would with, a pickup truck, for example. It's unavoidable. They are repairable. Powder coating does a wonderful job. Our powder coater has been doing this for 20 years. He's right in the neighborhood. He's probably about 800 feet away from our shop. And he not only does powder coat, but he repairs the wheels. So if you've got a cracked wheel, you've got the type of curb rash that took off some aluminum.
Right.
He's going to be able to restore that. And the coolest thing we've seen them do is two-tone or even three-tone. If you've got a preference, you want the spokes one color and then the wheel surface itself another color, he can do all of that.
That's wild. That'd be cool.
It is. So curb rash, chip wheels, all powder coated. Now here's a big one, rodent damage. Jesse, if we can bring up, I've got a folder out there called Rodent Damage. And if we can go through the pictures in sequence, starting with picture 0. For some reason, mice, rats, I don't know what else gets in there, seem to like Tesla Roadsters. We're getting a lot of them these days, a significant amount, more than we have. This particular car that I'm about to show you came in. It would no longer drive or charge. It turns out that rodents had gotten into the console, not the dash here. I'm going to show you what happened in the dash after just a moment here. But they got into the console and they began to eat things. And what they typically like to eat is insulation, but they don't stop there. They will chew into the wiring harnesses, eat the insulation off, and then continue into the copper. And the only justification that we can come up with is they have to file down their teeth periodically, so they try to chew on things to achieve that goal.
That is true, that they have to do that. And the copper, while it's fairly soft, it would be certainly a convenient thing for them to be able to chew on.
Yeah. So anyway, this car got repaired. I was test driving it, and we go through all of the functions in the car, the AC, the heater, and all that. Man, I turned on that heater, and I thought, boy, this thing smells bad. Did they not get everything out of there? Came back the next day, said, oh, no. We cleaned, we sanitized, we found the nests inside the console area. Everything got cleared out. There must be another one that we didn't get to. So they opened it back up, and this time they opened up the dash portion. Let's go to picture number 1, Jesse. What you're going to see here is what they eat. That loop of coaxial cable there actually feeds that GPS antenna that's sitting in the middle there. And you can see that's chewed through.
Oh, yeah.
The coils are chewed through. And I'm going to do some close-ups here and show you what other kind of damage they did there. The things on top of the chewed portions of the coax are turds. And to the right is a nest. So let's go to picture 1A, and you can see a close-up of what was probably creating the smell as I was driving it. And then picture 2 shows a nest. Now, you may ask, where did they get this material for the nest? Well, the answer is from your car. We've seen seat belts chewed up because they wanted something soft for their offspring. Mm-hmm. And, the carpet, definitely, they get into that. And again, these are not sanitary environments.
Well, and they will even take, they might not be actually eating all of that wire insulation. You might be seeing there chewed up and spit out wire insulation too,
For the nest, yeah.
or the nest.
And then the last image gives you a close-up of this nest. And this is directly underneath the dash area. And so anyway, this is what happens when you get rodent damage. Now, what we end up having to do, they build nests in the running boards, for example. That's a popular area because there's a big gap there. And they try to pick places where their predators can't go. If you've got a house cat, it could certainly control these types of pests. But, do you remember Tom and Jerry? He had that little hole in the baseboard.
I do.
And the cat oftentimes would run up to that and bonk his head because he couldn't get through that little port.
Yep.
And then Jerry would come out and sneer at him and tease him a bit more. Well, that's one of the reasons that they build nests in these small, tight areas. So what we have to do is go on a witch hunt. We've got to find all the areas they might have nested. And then after we clear all of this, we then have to sanitize and fumigate. And one of the ways that we fumigate is with an ozone generator, which generates active oxygen. We put that inside the car. We turn on the fan to circulate, and it begins to send, active oxygen throughout the car, which is like a bleaching agent without the liquid.
I see. So the active oxygen then chemically reacts with all of the scent-producing molecules that are floating around there.
With the organic matter that is decaying, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And what's left, and of course, bacteria. So we've got a few questions here. Nalver 53. I don't have experience with Tesla Roadsters, but the rodents apparently, they love my Mercedes Benz 250. They do have a preference. And maybe AI someday can help us. Which cars do rodents like best? But the Roadster is definitely heading to the top of the list.
It's definitely high up on there. I wonder if a lot of this is because the Roadster owners will typically preserve their Roadsters. They put them into places where they're climate controlled, where there's a low chance of predators being around. And these little guys will get into those types of areas where the predators can't be, and then they look for a nice, quiet, secluded, in safe spot.
Good point. That Chevy Tahoe daily driver probably gets enough use to where the rodents don't feel safe building a nest there.
Yes.
So they make the investment in something that's been sitting for a long time.
Yes.
Good point. All right.
So Highlander as well has joined us, and welcome back, Highlander. He says, can you please mention the Michigan Muskegon Father's Day Tesla event? This Tesla event is coming on June 15th. And he's told that there's going to be Roadsters there. Highlander, I know, is going to be there. He's bringing his bagpipers.
Oh, that is such a haunting instrument.
It's an incredible instrument. I've heard that it's actually not very easy to play, and to play it well is a rare skill.
Really? Okay. Ian Caldwell says, no VIN yet, waiting for Roadster 2. Okay. A lot of people are waiting for that.
Oh, yeah.
Highlander, bring the varmints to Oregon, Ohio. We have so many birds of prey. We don't have rodents. Not supposed to have your cat outside. Oh, yeah. I'll bet they ignore Vinfast cars, Nalver says. I'm not going to go there.
I don't want to go there. That's great, though.
So staying with some of the things that the Roadsters, the condition that they come in with, and some of the repairs that we do. Typically, the older Roadsters come in and they ride like a dump truck. They have bump steer, loose steering racks. You can feel it. They have alignment issues, so your tires wear more often. Rattles, they bottom out. I had one from San Diego. My God, you hit, even a crack in the road, or a transition in the road, and this thing would just clunk in the back.
Oh my gosh.
The bump stop on the shocks were gone. It was, and then we have loose mounting brackets. This is something else we reported on months ago, where we're finding that the upper shock mounts on the front of the Roadsters work their way loose and eventually become so loose that the mounting holes become elongated. They look like an egg shape. So, new suspension overhaul, including performance shocks, is high on the list of priorities for your aging Roadster. And as we reported, actually sent out an email last night and on Facebook, we now also are offering powder coating on the suspension components, control arms, the tie rods, even the sway bars. In the Four Seasons climate areas, these parts really take a beating. The plating that was once on those has been rusted off or corroded off.
Sure, that makes total sense.
All right, TikTok.
Lisa MV on TikTok. She says, I have tenants in my 2012 Chrysler 300. They come into the wheel well area.
Aha, okay.
So, and Lisa, you make a good point there. Different cars are going to have different areas where the rodents like to reside. For the Roadsters, like you said, it's under that running board. That running board is kind of triangular almost, and it's hollow the entire length. And so it's very difficult for anything larger than a rodent to even get in there.
Yeah, and there's some wiring in there. There's a wiring harness, which of course provides a food source for them. All right, seats in these Roadsters, well-used seats, the 30,000 mile plus seats. They're worn, the cushions are reduced, and the slides bind or are loose. That's the portion that theoretically slides a seat back and forth in a Roadster. I think most people just simply put that seat all the way back because it's such a cramped cabin,
Oh, yes. We had one of our customers, Mike Maloney. He was on our podcast a few months ago, and I know that on his Roadster, he's about my height. He's pretty close, and he said, I can't hardly drive one of these Roadsters. And he actually had the pedals moved back. Mm-hmm. He had some adjustments done inside the cabin, so it was easier for him to be able to get in and drive it.
Yeah. Yep, it was heavily modified for a tall person. They did that for Tom Selleck with that 308 Ferrari as well. He couldn't fit in that well either. So what we do with the seats, with the leather inside the cabin, we reupholster with buttery Italian leather. Doesn't that sound good? And we restore the cushions, and we repair the mounts and slides. By the way, when I say we have contractors that do this type of work. We do so many things on the Roadster, but there are specialists that do a much better job than we ever could. Things like PPF application.
Right.
Things like reupholstering the leather. A friend of mine down the street here does Lamborghinis and Ferraris, and he actually got enough business where he developed his own leather capability in-house. But we're not there. So our vendor that does the leather seats is the same one that does the high-end, or used to do the high-end stuff for Steve.
If you ever think Gruber Motors gets close to that, by the way, I help do purchasing for my son's company for the sunglass cases.
Right.
So I know how to get leather wholesale from Italy, from France,
very cool,
from Argentina.
There you go. So we've got a source.
Yes.
Trunk struts. Those are the things that keep your trunk lid in the back up when you click that button in the cabin or use the key to unlock. When these things have aged, they don't pop up. They kind of sit there. You have to lift them up, and then you have to get a piece of wood or something or a golf club to prop it up so it doesn't fall on your head while you're putting groceries in the trunk. These trunk struts are inexpensive. They're easily replaced, and it's again something that's very common on the Roadster that we end up doing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the trunk mechanism that opens the trunk in the back, there's a solenoid back there, which is basically a coil with a plunger. And the plunger goes in and out, and there's a rubber boot that covers it, kind of like a CV joint. Well, rubber gets old, brittle, cracks. Next thing you know, it's exposed, and that plunger is constantly dragging some dirt into that solenoid, and you end up with a binding solenoid, which eventually is going to get so bad that when you go to click that button, you'll hear the click, but your trunk won't open.
Right.
And then that's miserable because there is no other option at that point in time, because you're going to have to then use a special tool to get to the forward latches on both sides to open that trunk. that part is also highly recommended to get replaced because it's worn. The boot is probably cracked, and it is going to eventually start to fail on you.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have the yellowing PPF. If you have a Arctic white Roadster, that is the most visible sign of PPF yellowing. All the other colors, it kind of fades with the color, especially the reds.
A little bit, the reds. I was thinking, I remember seeing one of the China Roadsters that had the really bad PPF on it, and it almost looked like a red-orange because there was so much yellowing in the PPF.
In the PPF, yeah. So the original paint protective film, and this stuff hasn't been around that long, apparently. 3M started making it like 15 years ago or so.
Yeah, it's very recent.
And they weren't good batches. And, like most manufacturers, they can't always predict how their product will age. So
Right.
Yellowing PPF, and then, of course, aging PPF. It needs to come off every 7-8 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
It's all things that we end up recommending and doing. By the way, when you bring a Roadster, we'll fix the problem, and then we'll give you a list of recommendations, and they're prioritized. We've got the high, medium, and low, and then you get to choose based on your budget. Lots of explanation as to why we're making that recommendation, and we'll get into some more of those, like thermal management. That's an important one.
Sure.
Then, do you want more carbon fiber trim? We have it all from steering wheel to interior trim pieces to exterior pieces. We even replace the cooling fan housings, which are old and brittle ABS plastic up underneath the car, with carbon fiber pieces and aluminum reinforcements. So better than new. It's rare that when I test drive a Tesla Roadster, I can look up at the rear view mirror and not see delamination. What I mean by that, it's kind of like the plasma leak that we talked about earlier that happens in the later Model S's, where you get a border around the screen. The same thing happens for some reason with the rear view mirror. It begins to delaminate the reflective surface, and you start getting some darkness around the borders, blotches at times. Again, this thing is so cheap. Just replace it, and you'll have a brand new mirror. And thanks to one of our Roadster community members, actually, he found the original mirror that was used in the Tesla Roadster. It ended up being, and I can't remember off the top of my head, not like a Mercedes part or something.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was Mercedes or if it was even Mitsubishi or. Kudos to the community here, because we had been trying for months to find it, and we're never able to find it.
And the critical difference that made, getting the same rear view mirror, was you didn't have to take off the metal mounting portion, which is touchy. It's you have to heat it up. Then it breaks the bond, the glue. Then you have to re-glue it. This particular mirror that we now have on our e-store, by the way, everything I'm telling you, by the way, is on the e-store. So if you want to buy one, you can go out and see it. It will fit directly onto the mounting portion on the windshield, so you don't have to take that off.
Nice.
Okay. Knobs, interior knobs. The first failing knob is going to be your dimmer knob, which is over on the left-hand side on the 1.5s and the 2.0s. They have a D sort of a configuration with a metal clip. And that plastic, as it ages, becomes fatigued. It cracks. And then that knob doesn't work anymore. We have a full set of knobs for both the 2.0 center console and for the 1.5, the light dimmer switch as well, or the dimmer. It's actually a rheostat, a variable resistor. All right. One thing that we do with every Roadster that comes in, there isn't a Roadster that comes in where the lettering is factory white.
Right.
It's dirty, it's stained, it's gray. Every floor mat that comes in, every Roadster that comes in, has the mats removed, they are steam cleaned, and the white letters pop back up. Then they're stored until the Roadster goes back out. And what you end up with is new-looking mats again. Hardtop delamination. Oftentimes, that fabric that is glued to the to the bottom of your hardtop. As it ages, the adhesive becomes hardened, compromised, and that will sag. We will restore that and put a new material inside so that you have a new-looking hardtop again. Same is true with a soft top. There's a sponge layer in between the two layers, which decomposes. And you've probably seen it. It looks like light brown pepper.
Okay.
All of these little dust flakes come down every time you either hit it or you roll it up. And,
okay. Yeah.
so that gets rebuilt. We get rid of all of that, that decomposing sponge material. The power electronics module. And again, this is, from our recommendation, this is right at the top of the list. It's a high priority. Your power electronics module is a box that is a three-phase converter. Tesla now charges $8,500 for that with a core charge. And it is the heart and brains of your drivetrain. It is the electronic box that converts all that DC energy to three-phase AC to drive your three-phase AC induction motor. That box is going on 15, 16 years now with the first legacy Roadsters, the 2008s. And there are wear components inside. Again, you have electrolytic capacitors that have an 8-year shelf life. They're now 15, 16 years old. And they're in a portion of circuit that sees 400 volts with 800 amps. So you don't want to compromise on taking care of some of those kinds of replacement items. There's an insulating material in there that is preventing the IGBT transistors from shorting to ground, but transferring heat to the heat sinks. That material is drying up, crumbling, and when it fails, not if, but when it fails, it's going to short 400 volts to ground, and it's going to blow up some of your IGBT transistors. And in a worst-case scenario, it's going to send harmful, dangerous signals, kind of like miniature lightning bolts, upstream into your logic, into boards that are no longer in production. So proactively doing an engine rebuild on your electronics is highly recommended. It's kind of like your exotic Ferrari, Lamborghini, McLaren. They typically have engine rebuilds at certain time cycles. Then there's also weatherproofing. If you live in a wet climate, it's wise to weatherproof your HVAC controller underneath the hood, the front hood. The charge port door, we've seen a lot of those compromised. And your ESS pack in the back, which if it rains, water can collect on top of your battery pack. And if it's had any kind of maintenance where that seal has been broken for that aluminum angle, then you're going to get water inside the battery pack, and then your immersion sensor is going to trip a interlock alarm, preventing you from driving the car. We've seen that a number of times as well.
Well, and haven't we even seen where that insulating material on the ESS pack itself gets old, brittle, cracked, and no longer waterproof? And so you get water incursion that way too, even if it hasn't been taken off for maintenance.
Sure, because, urethane, eventually dries up. It's kind of like the door seals that you have in your home. They don't last forever.
Right.
So that's another area that if you live in a wet climate or your car sees some rain, it's wise to do some weatherproofing. Headlights. Boy, there's a whole large, long topic there. The first indication we see is the peeling. It looks like a sunburn, and it's peeling.
Right.
Quite repairable. What we do there is we sand off the old clear coat that is failing. And most recently, we used to ceramic coat. Most recently, what we've recommended is putting clear bra on that. And it will seal it and keep it shiny and protect it. So that, any rock chips or anything like that.
That makes a lot of sense too, because your clear bra, it's a clear plastic headlight, and you're putting a clear plastic coating on that clear plastic headlight. And until or unless your clear bra yellows, cracks, and fades, which is going to be 8 to 10 years, that is an ideal situation because it's going to be more robust than a clear coat would be.
And if you have the original headlights that are incandescent bulbs, there's a number of reasons to change those. First of all, they're dim and they're unsafe. Those of you that have those Roadsters, you know when you're driving at night, you're not feeling as comfortable as you would if you had some decent headlights and some decent illumination. The second reason is those incandescent bulbs, especially the parking bulb, runs hot.
Yeah.
And that's why your little lens cover eventually loses its mounting tabs and falls down inside your headlight. Now you're in a world of hurt because you can't get in there to retrieve it unless you have a company like us open it up, take it out, and then repair it. So, but there's another thing that you can do. If you replace your dim incandescent headlights, you're not going to have plenty of brightness. Now you can go with a tinted PPF for your headlights, and they basically recede, and all the internals are kind of hidden until you turn on the headlights.
Oh, nice.
We have done that to some of the Sterling silver Roadsters, and it looks great. It's a nice offset. Glacier blue looks good with a tinted PPF on the headlights as well. We have plenty of pictures, by the way. If you ever want to see examples of any of this, on our website, there's a gallery section, and you can see some of our best work out there.
Yeah. We have, you know what? We have a lot of questions that have come up. Let's go through some of them. Starting with Cyber Beast. He says, I did not know that there's no clear coat on the Cybertruck. The Cyber Beast, for those of you who were in our last podcast will know, he got a Cybertruck recently.
Yeah.
He says, I'm already seeing some rust spots. Oh my gosh.
That's a total surprise. Looks like a warranty issue.
Absolutely, because that's stainless steel. That's not supposed to rust at all.
Right. Highlander, P.S. kindness is always free.
Thank
Absolutely,
you,
Highlander.
Cringe to Grace Hopper, to Nolver 53. He says, VinFast was decent on Out of Spec's recent 800-mile run with a Y following, despite being hamstrung by a new car unregistered CCS account. Wish them well in contributing to Tesla's mission. I think you and I are together on this one. We don't want to see any of these car dealers go under. VinFast has had some quality issues, but hope for the best for them. I think they can be a worthy competitor someday, too.
The only thing we want to see go away is ICE vehicles.
That's right.
Robo45H says, recently water incursion, bad connector seals killed my 14 Model S P85D, the high voltage battery and rear drive unit. Fixed on new Model S. There have been a lot of improvements on that website that or that Facebook site we were telling you about. The most recent thread that's been evolving is some products that will actually avoid getting the water or the coolant into the inverter section of the drive motor type inverter.
Right.
And then there's some product that has been developed by QC Charge, I believe. And I know you want us to sell that, Tony. I saw your post, by the way. We don't do a huge amount of Model S's these days, but we definitely have your product on tap, and we know where you are, and when we're ready, we'll ask you for some.
Yeah, by all means. I know that our priority is still keeping the Roadster community up and running. As we grow in capacity, we are starting to take on more Model S work, but we're still at a point where we're, 9 months out, I think, on the wait list?
Yes, yeah. On Model S's.
On Model S's, yes, not on Roadsters. And what that means is because we are starting to cycle Model S's through on a somewhat consistent basis, it seems like for everyone that we get out the door, that there are at least one or two more that are coming onto the bottom of the list.
If not more, yeah.
Robert North says, quick question, please, guys. I have a 2020 Performance Model 3. It's starting to smell from those two cabin filters. Can I run without those cabin filters with no problems, or should I put new ones in?
You can run without them. What I would take a look at is, are you using your AC unit in recirculate mode? And if you are, you're not bringing fresh air in to dry up your chambers that air is going through, you're going to end up with some of that musty smell.
Yeah, and not having cabin filters, if you're constantly running that way, will not necessarily get rid of that musty smell that will eventually come back.
Yeah.
Is he talking about the HEPA filters in those?
Well, there are two types. There's the inexpensive ones, and then the big HEPA filter. What I would do, by the way, if you're looking for filters, is try Amazon. I've heard that they're a pretty good source for those different types of filters.
Yeah, they typically are. Highlander says, there's a couple of us on the couch watching the show, and they said, what's a capacitor? I figured I'd let you explain.
All right.
You go ahead, Pete.
In the world of electronics, there are a lot of different types of components. And a filter capacitor is essentially like a short-term battery. It has a plus and a minus terminal for the DC capacitors. There's also an AC cap, but I won't get into that. And what it does is it stores DC energy for a brief period of time. Different than a battery, which stores it for a long period of time. You're cranking your car, you still have some juice to run the headlights and all of that. The purpose of a capacitor is as a filter when you're converting AC to DC. Okay, AC is alternating current, which means that you're transitioning from plus to minus 60 times a second. So your polarity is continuously changing. DC is steady state current. It's always going to be a plus voltage, and then it's got a negative reference. Well, in order to convert AC to DC, what they do is use diodes, which take half the waveform, so only the positive portion passes through. And in a full wave bridge rectifier, they take the bottom portion and invert it, so you now end up with a positive pulse and another positive pulse immediately, rather than that gap in between when it would have gone negative with just a single diode. Well, what you now have is what's called ripple. You went positive, but you came back to zero until your next positive waveform started. So in order to get rid of the ripple, they put a capacitor in parallel with that DC path. And what it does, when that waveform tries to go negative, it discharges and keeps the waveform up positive. The best way to describe it, I guess.
That's a great description.
So it gets rid of the ripple.
And ripple is bad. Why?
Because you're not getting a steady DC voltage, and some electronic components will be affected by that. You know, if that chip is expecting plus 5 volts steady state, as soon as it goes below 5 volts, it may clock to a different, function.
Right. It may clock to a different function. It may actually damage the chip because it's trying to accommodate for it. And the next thing you know, you have all that voltage coming back. So it's thinking that it's getting 60 spikes a second.
So getting back to in a power electronics module, which is, I think, what prompted that comment, you have a bunch of filter capacitors. There are 21 of them. They're 40 microfarads at 400 volts DC.
Okay.
These are large filter caps. And what they do is, as the DC is being converted to 3 phases of AC, phase A, B, and C, converting each of those phase boards to AC. I'm sorry, I'm going the opposite direction. It's actually filtering in order to create
that AC sine wave again.
Right, the AC sine wave.
Okay. And so it's all about keeping the power clean and having that extra little bit of energy to be able to do so.
Right. And then it gets more complicated. You throw chokes in there, and they do the opposite. They have a high impedance. One has a high impedance when it's charging, and the other one has a low impedance when it's charging.
Okay.
And in conjunction with each other, they actually eliminate that ripple to almost a perfect level.
So, well, there you go. Highlander has another comment for us great tip here. He says, for the budget-minded, if you're cleaning your headlights, just use a newspaper and some car cleaner wax, such as turtle wax. That'll clean your headlights very nicely. Robo45H has joined us. He says, I joined the live late. Pointers to Facebook and UC Charge. You were just talking about that.
That's Tony's business that makes some of these products that are designed to alleviate the leakage into the inverter section of the drivetrain.
And he says the info about the Model S water incursions appreciated. If I recall correctly, some of the older Model S's are designed where the condensate from the compressor ends up dripping down right onto the lid of the battery.
There was just a post this morning, actually, on Ray Johnson's Facebook site. And someone pointed out, here's that little drip tube. It's dripping right down on top of the battery pack. It collects the water, and it begins to rust the steel bolts. They didn't use stainless steel or a stainless steel cover.
Right.
So one of the common fixes for that is we have a 90-degree elbow brass. We don't want it to corrode. And then we have a tube that runs and drips that water down on the outside edge of the battery pack.
Yeah, it's an easy fix for us, something that we'll do. And I don't know if the newer Model S's have a better or different design, but I know the older ones do have that. Khalid Muhammad says, how are you? He sent us a rose. Hope you have a nice day. And he decided to buy a Tesla.
Well, congratulations. Yes.
Welcome to the club.
Robert Trita is joining us. He was a Denver mayoral candidate. And actually, Robert, his Roadster was here. And what we were trying to do was get it operational before the election because Robert's platform was clean energy.
Right.
And it would have been great to be able to drive up to these events with a Tesla Roadster to prove that he's passionate about that.
Yes.
But thank you for joining us on this podcast, Robert. Appreciate it.
And he had said, awesome explanation. Highlander says, thank you, Pete. He says, it's almost all women on the couch. You took the burden off my shoulders.
I'll send you an email. Yeah.
Thank you.
So staying with what kinds of improvements can be made to a Tesla Roadster. Thermal management, and that's one near and dear to our hearts because during the summer season here, if your Roadster has a thermal problem, it's going to manifest here during test driving.
Oh, yeah.
And what we found is a number of things that we're able to do to improve the amount of cooling that your Roadster gets. The thermal problems in a Roadster are well documented. They were there from day one. There's a story about a signature Roadster that went to Abu Dhabi, and the wealthy oil sheik that bought it was annoyed by the fact that he could get out of everybody's way until it reached a certain temperature outside, and then he went into limp mode.
Yeah.
And he no longer had that zip and that pin back in the seat type experience. Tesla sent a couple of engineers out there. Jameson Cummings actually was one of them. And they took a look at a number of different issues to improve the thermal management. The thing that we do is we recommend change your fans, your cooling fans. You have two of them in the back. One cools the PEM, one cools the drive motor. These are DC brush motor devices. And a DC brush motor has the equivalent of two pencil erasers that are mounted against a commutator, which is a spinning, rotating copper number of pads. Like pencil erasers, they wear out. Then you have bearings inside those fans. Everybody knows that bearings eventually gum up. They become, resistant to the centrifugal force. So you're getting less CFM, cubic feet per minute. Fans need to be replaced every 5 to 7 years. You have the equivalent in a 1.5 Roadster of another DC brush motor item, which is a pump, a coolant pump for the main battery pack. Very vital component. And again, these fail. Initial indications that they're failing, they may start moaning, for example.
Right.
Or they don't moan or make any noise at all, but you're getting reduced coolant flow, which is going to increase the temperature in the Roadster.
Well, unless people out here don't know, it's not just ICE vehicles that have coolant. Electric vehicles. I still remember going to the local AutoZone and saying, hey, I need to get some coolant for my Model S. And they kind of laughed at me. Yeah, right. It's an electric car. Like, no, seriously. Model S has its own type of coolant. And they didn't believe me. So I went down to O'Reilly and got the coolant. And because all electric cars have to have cooling for the battery systems. And it's a very similar type of system with just that instead of an impeller motor that's run by the engine, you have an electric impeller motor or something like that, which is what we have here.
There is a cooling duct that goes up to your power electronics module. Remember, that's that big three-phase inverter full of electronics and boards. And the effectiveness of cooling that has everything to do with the quality of the fans, the amount of cubic feet per minute it's pushing, and your cooling tube, which with age, it's a neoprene tube, about 4 inches or so in diameter. It gets fissured, it gets cracks, and now you're no longer providing adequate cooling to the PEM. So those are the types of recommendations that we make for a Tesla Roadster when it comes in and once we fix the problem.
Couple more comments we have. DJ Sniper says, hey, how are you guys doing on this fine day? And DJ, it is fine here in Phoenix. We're going to be what we like to call Chamber of Commerce weather. 70 degrees, clear, sunny, beautiful time of year for us.
Bunch of Grace Hopper says, regarding capacitors, could they be Megapack, peaker plant's secret sauce for grid resiliency versus the 20 minutes that the gas turbines need to spin up? You lost me there, Grace. You have some expertise there that I don't think we have.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of what we do in the critical power space, where it'd have to be some pretty large capacitors in order to be able to hold the electricity for any length of time. Highlander says, I'm watching this podcast on his cell phone. He says, everyone else is watching it on the big screen, so they can't see the comments. Lots of laughs.
CyberBeast says, the best Cybertruck cleaner leaves no spots is ammonia-free glass cleaner. Okay.
Okay. I've always wondered, and CyberBeast, you can probably answer this. For appliances, you have stainless steel cleaner. I wonder if that same kind of stainless steel cleaner would work on something like the exterior of a Cybertruck.
You know, our janitors use stainless steel cleaner, and it leaves an oily residue, so it has more than just cleaning properties, I think.
Yeah.
That's what gets it shiny or leaves it shiny, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. Then DJ Sniper, the ones that grease starts drying up, it's game over. Well, that's about those capacitors. And yes, they're oil filled, and that oil or grease, that thick oil, that will dry up over time. That's why capacitors fail.
Well, they become resistive, and you don't want your capacitor being a resistor. You want just the opposite, in fact.
Yeah.
And once they become resistive, they make the inverter work harder, they make the transistors work harder, and you're giving it 100% throttle call at the same time. So the chance for failure increases.
Yeah, definitely does. False Hopes asks, I just use Windex. Is that bad? Windex is an ammonia-based glass cleaner. If you're using it on a Cybertruck, CyberBeast is saying that it might not be the best, give you the best quality, but I don't think it's bad.
Yes, Cyberbeast says no, the regular fridge cleaners didn't work.
They didn't. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Cyberbeast.
So got an interesting update for you here. There was a Tesla Roadster that went to the Fort Lauderdale Service Center. It was bricked, meaning that the battery was dead. And it was beyond the recovery window. We usually give it about 6 months to a year, depending if the service plug is pulled. And we can actually bring that Roadster back to life. This one was bricked too long.
Right.
It turns out that his turn finally came up for a replacement battery pack. They put it in, and the customer was basically ready to pick up the car, and one day the car was gone, literally vanished. And it turns out that the car was stolen. No details yet. Where was it? Inside the building? Did they break in the building? Was it left outside? Were the keys in the car? You know, these are all the typical questions that someone would begin to ask. Well, it turns out that the car was retrieved, and it was only a few miles from the service center, and brought back to the service center. It had a bit of damage, nothing major though. They tried to get in the glove compartment, for example, and ripped off the airbag cover on the dash.
Yeah, they thought it was the glove compartment because a Roadster doesn't have one.
They were unhappy with the small one down below, maybe, and then decided to go to the upper one. But the latest update on that, and it was quite a tragedy. I mean, it was horribly embarrassing for Tesla, for example. You know, I mean, I can't imagine how that could happen and how a service organization would feel going through something like that. Currently, it's VIN541, by the way. It's a Thunder Gray Roadster. And the owner was actually here to visit us a couple of weeks ago. took the tour and all that, and we spoke about the car a bit more. It's currently tied up in insurance questions. Anyway, there will be some resolution to that problem, and that car has been retrieved. I'm sure that Tesla will do the right thing and put it back together, and the customer will get his car back. But at this point, it's still bricked, and they are waiting to get all the insurance issues straightened out.
Okay.
So we were at the Tempe Service Center. We send a lot of Roadsters there. If they're Roadsters that we can't recover because they're beyond that time span of 6 months to a year bricked. We keep them very busy, actually. And the other day we were there. We went to retrieve a Roadster or drop off a Roadster. I forget which. But anyway, one of the customers asked the service advisor, and our people overheard this. They said, "Why is there a Porsche at this service center?" All right.
And didn't the service center guy was stuck trying to explain to this person how this little sports car is actually not a Porsche.
He was gentle, I think. Yeah, from what I heard, he pointed out that this was their first generation car, that it was a Tesla, which of course shocked this individual.
Oh yes.
And I'm sure after that they went out and looked at it and got a closer look. Jesse, I think we've got another image here. We have a customer that piped up on the Tesla Roadster Owners Group site, and with a car that looks like it's been painted with some cool colors. It has some decals on it and some wraps showing that they're passionate about sustainable energy. You see the little windmills on the front there?
I do. Is that the painted Roadster picture?
It is, yep. And I think Jess is going to bring it up here in a second. This particular owner actually lives in the Czech Republic. So we have one in Czechoslovakia. And here's a town I can't pronounce. It's Brno. I'm sure that if I spoke Czech, I would be able to say that fluently.
I'm not even going to try.
But as you can see, there's some really cool coloring in this. And he's, of course, very proud of this. And it looks like this might have been fall when this was taken because, well, maybe not. Could have been summer too, I suppose.
Could have been. It looks like a truly gorgeous custom paint job on this particular car, though.
Mm-hmm.
I love seeing the windmills and it looks like more of a, like you said, a painted scene, not any kind of a PPF or wrap scene.
Mm-hmm. All right, here's another item, and this is actually from Ray Johnson's site. It looks like we're starting to quote some things from that site, and there's a good partnership there. This was regarding safety and doing battery work on these Model S's or, well, I suppose even the Roadsters for that matter. The comments here were regarding safety, regarding high voltage like this and high current. And Paul Erickson pointed out that something that stayed with him was at the Clark Service School in Lexington, Kentucky. It was around the year 2000, and they had just had a workplace fatality. That's going to sober up everything, I believe, and everyone.
Oh, yeah.
But he says safety first. Sometimes you have to slow down to go fast. I like that comment. And then someone else chimed in Paul's comment. They said, in the Army, we always said that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And then another person chimed in who's also active on the site, Archie. He says, you can never be too safe with these cars. I have a client who was working on a battery module, and for some reason, he thought he could use a wood screw to screw down the loose wire on one of the individual cells.
Oh, my gosh.
He actually burnt down half his house. And then someone else pointed out, they were talking about Rich rebuilds. And, you know, Rich does a lot of work on the Teslas. He was the first one that really gained prominence with working on Teslas in the space. So he was one of the godfathers. And the comment was, I have all too many contacts mention Rich rebuilds, and I'm quick to remind them that he is a YouTube celebrity, not a trained mechanic who has never had safety as a protocol. My take on that is, I'm sure that Rich, he's an engineer, by the way, and
Yeah.
I'm sure that he's been exposed to safety training and protocols. But Rich is an entertainer. I remember him working inside a Model S with a butter knife, or tearing the lid off a 1,200-pound Model S battery module with a chain tied to it, tied to his two-post lift as he was raising the lift. He obviously wasn't going to reuse that lid. We are very safety aware ourselves here at Gruber Motor Company, having had 2 fires, one directly tied to a lithium-ion battery. That was in 2017, where we were overcharging a large 1,000-pound Tesla Roadster battery pack, which ignited. Safety and isolation is everything to us. Today, we perform any battery work in a self-contained battery bunker,
Yes.
completely away from the main building, inside a steel container. And that's where any kind of battery work that is outside the normal battery safety management protocols that the cars have. And it's very important to us.
Definitely is, and we've thought about that early fire at times and realized that was one of our first 3.0 packs. We're very interested in finding out what was going on with it. And we'll never know the answer, but was that pack already displaying evidence of impedance failure?
Yeah, yeah.
And we'll never know.
The evidence has been eradicated.
Yes, unfortunately.
I have another picture for you, Jesse. It's called cell phone. And while he's bringing that up, let's see what the next topic here is. So this was a prediction that Nikola Tesla made in 1926. And he says, "We shall be able to communicate with one another instantly, irrespective of distance. Not only this, but we shall see and hear one another as perfectly as though we were face to face. A man will be able to carry one in his pocket." Not women now, a man.
Yes.
It was a very sexist world back then.
It certainly was. It certainly was.
But if you consider FaceTime, we go even a step further now. Getting images.
Absolutely. And it's the whole idea of a video phone is something else. You were talking about safety, and there's something that we mentioned in the last podcast that we would get to here. I want to make sure we get to it, and that was about the people in Europe that have a novel way of replacing individual battery cells in a battery pack. Is that coming up soon?
Yep, it is. In fact, I think it's one of the next ones. Jesse, if we can go to a folder called powder coating suspension. It's got a date in front of it. We announced this on a Facebook site yesterday and then sent out an email to everyone to let them know this is available. And one of the responses I got this morning from Belgium was that we had shown a picture of the powder-coated suspension components in a Tesla Roadster, and what this owner and this repair, he's actually a repair organization as well, noted was, why did you not replace the, let me see if I can find his exact question here. Yeah, there we go. Hey, Pete, why do you also not put new wheel bearings in the suspension with this job? And what we're showing, well, first of all, let me go into the suspension components. Typically, when we take suspensions apart, these are the upper and lower control arms. We have to press new bushings into these control arms.
Okay.
They've already been removed, and those are those little circular holes there. And it always bugged us a bit because, let's go to the next image, Jesse. Yeah, there's a pile of rusted parts here, and what we're doing is putting brand new components in there.
Right.
Ball joints, for example, bushings. And we had some customers that began to talk about the fact that they've got a Four Seasons car, a car that goes through slush, snow, salt, all of that. And these components are beginning to corrode and rust. There's one final image there, Jess, and that'll show a bit more of the type of stuff that we end up taking out. So we're trying to put brand new stuff on these and always kind of puzzled, why can't we just improve this? So some of our customers began to ask us about powder coating these parts to protect them. You can see there's a lot of flash rust on some of those parts there.
Mm-hmm.
And it became very popular. Customers then also began to request matching the color of the car to the suspension components, or vice versa, actually.
Sure. Okay.
And the ones that seemed to make the most sense were sterling silver, looks like metal,
Of course.
thunder gray, dark gray.
Okay.
And then, of course, the default typically being black.
Uh-huh.
So we ended up offering this, and it's become pretty popular, actually. But the reason that we don't change the wheel bearings is we replace those only if they're defective, and that would include the half shafts, for example.
Sure.
The steering rack is another one. But we do rebuild any of these items, the half shaft, the steering rack, the steering mechanisms, and only when they're defective. What we find is every customer has a certain budget that they operate within.
Sure.
And we tell them, again, we prioritize. These are the high priorities. And something like this, a proactive replacement like this, would probably fall on the lower end. It doesn't mean there aren't going to be customers that would, exercise that option.
Well, wheel bearings are usually in most cars designed to last somewhere between 100 and 200,000 miles. And I'm not sure if I've seen a half a dozen Roadsters come through here with even 100,000 miles on it.
Right.
So your wheel bearings, other than maybe the grease drying out a little bit at them, they're probably generally in pretty good shape.
They are indeed, yes. All right, we've got another image we can throw up here, Jesse, and this one is called EV Clinic. This is a group that popped up on actually Ray Johnson's site initially, and they do battery repairs in Europe. So doing a little bit of research, they're in Zagreb, Croatia, and they have some partners, 2 or 3 of them throughout Europe. It's called Electric Vehicles Clinic. And yeah, that's the image we want. There we go. On their website, their heading is, "We are a secret team of automotive reverse engineers across world deploying some of the hardest researches of repetitive automotive defects to support our third-party workshops." I have a healthy respect for anybody that innovates, that takes a problem, tackles it, without supporting documentation, without assistance from the OEMs,
Right.
and that does reverse engineering and figures out ways to solve problems. And this is one of those companies. I have nothing but praise for them. Now, we differ a bit in our approach. What we're showing here is they're proponents of changing and swapping out battery cells. And this particular swap is in a Model S module. They call them, I forget what they call them on their website. They've got a video, by the way. Those of you interested, it is out on YouTube. Blocks, I think they call them. But so in this Model S module, they actually took the time to drill out and dig out the defective resistive cell. They don't say how they found it, which is something that we keep as a closely guarded secret as well. Took us years to develop that capability. But you can see that it's been chewed out. The reason that we don't do this, swap the battery cells, we have found that out of 7,000 cells, the car never notices that it lost one. It is impervious. Now, there are some differing opinions about that. Jason Hughes, for example, 3 years ago, took issue with that.
Mm-hmm.
There were even some magazines that came to us, and our comment basically was, look, guys, we've done a few hundred of these cars. We don't have a problem. If he does, he probably doesn't know what we know. The type of repair that we do when we find a resistive cell, and it's usually typically one will kill a car.
Mm-hmm.
We then simply snip it out of circuit. And if you see those little circles there, there's a fine fusible link wire that was ultrasonically welded to the bonding plate and to the cell, either the plus or minus portion. That fusible link is very easy to snip, and you simply take it out of circuit. For those of you that need an analogy, It's kind of like going to the dentist, and instead of pulling the tooth, they do a root canal. They disconnect the nerve. And you still keep your teeth.
Yeah. Do you remember that game? I think it's still out. It's called Operation. You have a little pair of tweezers and you're trying to get the pieces out. And if you hit the edge, because they're 4 AA batteries, you get a little 6-volt shock, and it's like, ah. I'm thinking of that on this, where these guys are using probably a drill of some sort, but instead of 6 volts and a few milliamps, you're talking about 400 volts and a couple of hundred amps.
It's actually 4 volts at this level, though.
Okay, that's true, because it is only because they are all in parallel. But you're still
a lot of amperage, though.
There's still a lot of amperage and current that comes through this, because that's kind of scary.
Yeah, but again, recognizing that these guys are engineers, I'm sure that they have realized that you have to discharge that one cell. First, you take it out of circuit.
Yes.
You then completely discharge it, because if you're going to drill into or puncture a live lithium-ion cell, you're going to create a thermal event.
Yeah, you're going to have all kinds of issues then.
And that will instantly migrate to the other cells. So I'm sure that they've disabled or discharged that cell completely.
Mm-hmm.
The second reason we don't take the cell out, not just because it's not necessary, but it is also potentially going to damage the cooling jacket. There is a flat ribbon that touches every single cell in these modules or the sheets in the Tesla Roadster, and it's fairly thin aluminum.
Yes.
If you compromise that cooling jacket, now you're going to have leaks inside that battery sheet, which eventually will migrate into the pack.
Yes.
Now, they've probably perfected a method that keeps that jacket intact. Again, it's a lot of work. They also, I believe, will have to remove some of that bonding plate in order to get enough clearance to pull that cell out, because the hole diameter is smaller than the cell.
Mm-hmm.
The next picture there, Jesse, shows the final step of what they do. So they have opened up a cavity in this module. One cell has been removed. They have a hole there. And then in EV Clinic 2, they show in this video, by the way, I highly recommend for those of you interested, because it's a fascinating video. These guys are innovating. What they then do is they use a tiny spot welder, and they put a piece of stainless steel ribbon, which is fairly common when you're connecting the lithium-ion cells into power tools, for example. They typically don't use fusible links. They use a hard connection like this. And then they spot weld that to connect that cell both on the top and bottom to the bonding plates.
Okay.
What's changed here now is you no longer have a fusible link. You have something that, if it shorts, would actually potentially cause a problem, and it's not going to destroy that fusible link connection. So far, the video claims that these guys have been successful with this, and they have done a few cars there in Europe, and have found that this is another way to get the cars back on the road.
You know, anybody who's working to get the cars back on the road like this, especially those that are out of warranty, hats off to them.
Totally. And again, that's why I prefaced this conversation. I'm incredibly impressed with the tenacity and their willingness to tackle a tough problem like this and come up with a solution. It may be different than ours, but the end result is the same. They've got a car running again.
Yeah, they've got a car running. There's a lot of what 99% of your people are going to look at is there's a lot of scary stuff that could go on that would be bad. And these guys are part of the 1% that says, yeah, but I'll bet we can make a way. And that persistence is what paid off.
Highlander says, Rich is awesome. He is awesome. We've been trying to get him on our podcast now for some time. He promises he's going to come, but hasn't done it yet.
Yeah,
so.
Not yet. Well, we'll get it.
Yeah.
Highlander, don't want to get political, but I try to say gang instead of guys. It's out of respect for the ladies in the room. Good point, Highlander. That's an excellent point. We'll try to make sure we do that. I myself especially. I was saying guys earlier today.
It's politically correct. That's right. All right. Wolf's MX5 says, why only Roadsters? Why not other series? 3YX? Well, This particular podcast portion starts at 11, and it's dedicated to the Tesla Roadster community. The broader question is, why do we only work on Roadsters? Well, it's not the only thing we work on, but it's the only thing that we give priority to. The instant a Roadster need comes in, or a broken Roadster's out there somewhere, we drop everything, and that Roadster becomes a high priority. 2 weeks ago, we had 4 brick Roadsters come in at one time. We literally had an assembly line. They were all allowed to come in, and we put them back on the road. And with a brick Roadster, time is everything. That battery recovery, the chances are highest if it comes in rapidly.
Right.
So we go to great lengths to make sure that transport is rapid, efficient, and fast.
Now, for the 3, the Y, and the X, especially the 3 and the Y, these are cars that are just now starting to come to their end-of-life warranty with Tesla. The Model X we have seen, and we work on a few of those. There doesn't seem to be the numbers of Model X's out there that we see a lot of traffic with those. But the 3s and the Ys, it's largely just a function of the first of the Model 3s are just coming off a warranty at the end of 2024. The first of the Model Ys are not going to come off a warranty for another 2 years after that, the end of 2026, because the Model Y was introduced around 2018. I'm sure over the next couple of years, as these cars start coming off warranty, our business model will change as well, and we will transition into working more on those.
So we've got a customer in Denmark, and his email to us was, any idea what the new battery pack for the Roadster will cost? Now, he's talking about Europe.
Pete, do you need an image? I got to step out for a sec.
No, we're good right now. Thank you. In the United States, the replacement battery pack for a Tesla Roadster was $29,000 before tax. And in most states, you're going to add about $4,000 to that. October 2nd of 2023, the price went up to $40,000 for a replacement battery pack in the U.S. And again, tax, probably about $5,000 or so. So $45K in the U.S. In Europe, it's quite a bit different. And the reason is they have to get the battery packs there, and you have customs, and you have shipping, and you have VAT taxes, and it gets very complicated. So we've heard customers have paid as much as $55,000 for a Tesla Roadster replacement battery pack.
Wow.
It's difficult because currently Roadster prices have taken a bit of a dip, and they're not selling for $55,000 yet. But, they're not too far off that. And we'll talk about one that sold here most recently, which really broke the lowest sale record in some time.
Yes.
So the way I advised this customer, he said, there are people in Europe that are talking about developing a replacement battery pack. And again, healthy respect for all of you guys out there that are working on it. We've also tried. We've run the numbers. We've done spreadsheets. Tesla's 29K battery pack was a bargain, beyond a bargain. There's no way we could have even gotten close to that figure.
Right.
Even at $45,000 now, using the same technology, same types of cells, all of that, it's touch and go. We're not quite there. And anybody in our space out here, not funded by Tesla or the federal government, grants and all that, we have to have return on investment. We have salaries that have to be paid. We have mortgages. We have insurance costs. We have utility bills. We just can't do it. Now, the ones in Europe are getting closer, it seems. There's a gentleman in Germany, northern Germany actually, Marco Nolte, who is experimenting with using Porsche Taycan battery packs in a Tesla Roadster enclosure. It's a cool concept. He has the software skills to do the integration, and he says he's close to having something. So I don't have anything concrete for you. You've got the Tesla option, which will continue and remain to be there because they don't seem to be giving up on the Roadster community. But any of these independents, at some point in time, somebody's going to pipe up and have a solution. But for now, There is no help available other than getting into the Tesla queue. By the way, to get yourself into queue at Tesla, we used to take those queue requests on our website, and we would feed them to Tesla regularly. Tesla feels now that they have a pretty good handle on it, and that the way to get in queue is to contact your local service center. Some of them are easier to reach than others, but don't give up. Keep trying.
Yes.
All right. Have another one here. And got a contact here, a Roadster owner. And she contacted us on Facebook, and she says, my car now has a new battery and a new PEM. Apparently, Tesla replaced her PEM. To go on record here, there's no such thing as a new PEM. There are reconditioned, remanufactured, and refurbished PEMs that Tesla offers. But production on those stopped in 2008 with Chroma in Taiwan. She says, but the car is suffering from loneliness, so it will be listed for sale soon. So look for VIN 892. I think it's a Thunder Gray. I'll have to look that up. I don't have the picture of it here. And we'll most likely have that on our Roadster matchmaking site. Let's get a couple of questions, and we'll talk about the low Roadster sale on Bring a Trailer here shortly.
Okay. First, we have Highlander. He says, I hope the bagpipes aren't going to chase Pete or any Gruber person from Michigan on June 15th. Just to recap, because it's been a while, earlier in this podcast, we mentioned it. June 15th, there is a Tesla takeover up in Michigan. Highlander is going to be one of the people who are there. And so I don't think we're committed yet to going, but it's something that we're definitely wanting to look at.
Very cool. Foster Henderson joined us. Foster, thanks for being there. We've got your picture. In fact, did I put it in the list? No, I didn't. Yes, I did. Jesse, if you can bring up Foster's battery. Is he there? Yeah, he's there. We were talking about, and talked quite a bit about, how these legacy Roadster battery packs just continue to function.
Yeah, and now as we're putting that picture up, a brand new Roadster battery pack in standard mode was advertised in 2008 that it would get about 185 miles. And in range mode that the battery would get around 225 miles. Foster's battery here is 180 miles. That's incredible.
Amazing, yes.
That's 15 years later.
Yeah. You've got a good, strong, healthy battery there, Foster. And the one that probably prompted this was, we have a reman 2.0 battery pack Roadster in our service center right now. And we were all shocked that this thing in standard mode charged 189 miles. So, but anyway, the good news is that no one yet knows how long the Tesla Roadster legacy battery packs are going to last. And that's a good thing. I had a conversation with JB years ago, and he said, oh, it's a 10-year lifespan. I'm expecting 10. He has 2 Roadsters. And he's probably also pleasantly surprised that they're still functioning. Will, he says, what about the 4.0 battery with Model S batteries from Chris near Frankfurt? Yeah, Chris Rosa. Sorry, I just joined, so maybe you already spoke about it. No, we did not. It turns out that none of the European innovators that are working on a replacement Roadster battery pack have anything commercially available yet that a customer like this in Denmark could buy and get installed. Chris made major headlines when he decided to take some of the Model S batteries and shoehorn them into a Tesla Roadster.
Very interesting concept there.
And
then Foster Henderson is a perfect segue into the thing we're about to start talking about. He says, that car on Bring a Trailer did not go through, Pete, if you're going to talk about the red one for $68K.
I did, and I'm going to talk about both things. Apparently, the backstory on this car is at Carl Medlock's shop currently, and the owner lives in Northern Cal, I think, was trying to sell it on Bring a Trailer. We're warning people, Bring a Trailer isn't going to get you what you want unless it's a highly pedigreed Roadster. we watched this one kind of hover around 65K for a long time. And then the last day of the auction, it got to $69,450, just under $70,000 for a fully functioning, mildly pedigreed. It's one of the 2.25 Roadsters, which, without going into long explanation, there were 4 of those made, and it was an upgrade done by Tesla to help sell the car. Well, the backstory that we got was that Bring a Trailer actually put a reserve limit for this customer. Initially, they were saying $40,000. Then they said $60,000. Well, the reason an auction house wants to have an aggressive reserve, if they're even going to offer a reserve, they're not going to get paid if your car doesn't reach the reserve. So in order to get paid, they want to make sure that it's something attainable. Well, the fact that they thought 60K was the limit on this car, to me, tells me the confidence level that they have in Roadsters. It's pretty low.
Yeah, definitely.
So the car sells for $69,450. Typically, what an owner would have to do in order to recover is to buy the car back and pay the auction their fees.
And it sounds like that might be exactly what happened.
Well, we don't know. I guess that's the bottom line.
Yes, we don't know for
Nothing's
sure.
been posted yet, but somehow the car now is available for sale again, and it's available for $75,000, which in my estimation is still low.
Yes.
Again, it is a radiant red, and it's got the new front end on it. And you can buy this car for $75K, and if you're interested, reach out to Carl Medlock or the owner. Was that pretty much the story that you got too, Foster? I know that you're on top of this as well a bit. And while we're getting an answer from Foster Henderson, I've got another image for Jesse to throw up. It is the Roadster without skins. And it's got the Facebook name on it with a lot of numbers.
I think we had another person that just tuned in here.
Okay. We already did that one about the 4.0 battery pack.
Right, but this is a different person. That's what I'm saying. Oh, wait, maybe it is the same one.
Will
But
versus
he just came in
William
on a
now.
different platform, so maybe he didn't hear it.
Okay.
But basically, it just isn't commercially available, right?
It's not commercially available. And, anybody that develops a product like this is going to have, they're going to have to meet certain requirements. They're not going to have to go through crash testing again on the Roadsters, but you're going to have some assurances that there's a warranty attached to this, and that the company that is offering something like this has deep pockets enough to be able to handle a warranty. We just had a recent example of that where, you can get yourself in trouble. We're in the service business. We have thousands of service agreements all over the United States, and we're like an insurance company. We're in the risk business. There's enough successful revenue-generating service contracts out there to cover the disasters.
Yes.
So small companies like this are going to be challenged in that area.
Yes, especially the small companies that are the revenue poor. They're only selling a small amount of product. Now, Foster Henderson came back and his answer to your question was yes.
I'm sorry, Pete, what was that other image you wanted?
The other image is it's a bunch of numbers, and it's a skinless Roadster.
Can you tell me, is this one that starts with 3 or 4?
It starts with 3-2.
Okay.
Yep, there we go. This was a picture posted by Jeff Rosevear. Jeff Rosevear, by the way, is a very loyal, accomplished Tesla employee who became a friend of mine, working with him those years that he was in supply chain at Tesla. He is very Roadster knowledgeable. He's always been helpful. He's just a fine, decent human being, and very Roadster knowledgeable. Anything regarding Roadster parts, he was there for like 14 years in the supply chain program, and retired a year and a half ago or so. But anyway, he posted this, and he says, "This post remains true to this day. I'm including the chassis that makes up this historic vehicle, simplicity and power. We can save our Mother Earth with just a few changes to our technology." And this apparently was a Roadster that they had located in the first showroom when they moved to Palo Alto. And he says, wow, it was a tough beginning. You talk to any of these early Tesla people, and they talk about the hard, long hours. You talk about the challenges that they face, the insurmountable obstacles, and Elon's tenacity to continue to hang in there and continue to fund and go out and try to find more funding and to keep the company alive.
It reminds me of seeing the post recently where Elon said he almost sold Tesla to Google.
Yeah, I saw that too.
It was $11 billion, and he said they were out of money. They had no money left. But then sales started to pick up, and he pulled out at the last minute. He just pulled out.
And you can tell that he has something that not all entrepreneurs have, which is an emotional attachment to what they've created.
Oh, yes.
It's very easy for the CEOs or entrepreneurs to walk away from something that they really didn't create because they don't have that attachment. But Elon was there from the early days, and he actually likens it to children, and how if you have two children, when he talks about SpaceX and Tesla, you can't just simply let one go and keep the other.
Right.
You have an obligation to both.
Right.
You love them both the same way, basically. But it was a special breed that actually helped Tesla survive, and of course, we're all grateful that they did.
What a fascinating picture too.
By the way, he says this car without skins was dubbed the Naked Roadster, and I never did find out who the person sitting in there with a laptop was. Eric Robertson is chiming in. Hello, Eric. He says,
Eric.
have you heard of Recell out of San Antonio? Oh, very much so, in Texas, Chad Maglake. They've been doing reman packs for other Teslas and are currently looking at Roadsters. Very much so. They are also very active on that Tesla Facebook site, the Ray Johnson site is what I'm going to call it.
We'll just call it the Ray Johnson site. Yes, I've heard of Recell. I believe I've seen a Recell office here in Arizona, down in the south.
No.
Something similar to that.
It's probably a realtor or something then, maybe.
There's something similar to that, but it's.
But yeah, Eric, Chad's organization is one of the better ones. Seems to be well funded, and they're doing great work. Good reviews from customers. Again, we need more people like that out there. Keeping these cars running. All right, let's see if we have anything else. I'm getting the time signal from social media over there.
Time. We've been here for 3 hours at this point.
All right. We got Foster Henderson's remarkable 180-mile charge. Took care of that.
Yep.
And that is really the end of the show then.
I think we got it all. And I was thinking of Life Cycle, by the way.
Okay.
So, yes, you're right. It was not Recell.
Thank you all for joining us. Appreciate all of you. Stay tuned. I'm going to say this correctly this time. For those of you that didn't watch it live and that see it live later on, we post these out on YouTube.
Yes, we post them. And Jesse, we still post these on Spotify as well, correct?
We post the EV show on there, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, well, thank you guys again. We'll be here at 10 o'clock next week for the EV show. And then you can always watch our other podcasts Friday for the Power Hour, Mondays at 10 o'clock for the I think they call it the Wired Hour.
Yes.
And then you'll be here tomorrow for the AI.
For the AI podcast, yes. And by the way, the Roadster portion is at 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time Tuesdays. Yes. The first one is the EV General, which is at 10 o'clock. Again, thoroughly enjoyed having you join us. We'll see you next week.
Take care.